Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay.
Okay, now members, welcome to the hybrid meeting of the Economic Development and Regeneration Committee. Can I ask everyone to please mute their microphones at all times unless invited to speak by myself? For those of you who are physically in the council chamber here tonight, can I please remind you that when speaking into your microphone, you need to wait until you see yourself on the screen so that the live feed can pick up your comments. If you speak before your image is projected, those listening on the live feed or via Zoom will not hear you. This is obviously particularly important in the case of a vote being required. Danny, can I ask you now to go? Everyone okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, members, agenda item number 1 is apologies. We have one apology, and it's Councillor Grania O'Neill. Is there any other apologies? Don't see any other. Okay, moving on. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interest, and we'll take those as the meeting progresses. Okay. Okay, members. Now we're on to agenda item number 3, and it's a presentation from Craigavon Council of Trade Unions Community Wealth Building. And doing the presentation with Mr. Dooley Hart. Before Dooley comes on, I don't know why any of you know Dooley Hart, but Dooley is a good friend of mine and has been over 50 years. And I think maybe Liam knows him well anyway, but just don't be alarmed if Dooley maybe refers to me as Smiler. So it was Dooley christened me that name over 50 years ago, so he's a lot to answer for. So, so Dooley, are you happy enough to move on? And Dooley's 30 minutes presentation, allow maybe 15, 20 minutes for questions.
That'll do then. Thanks very much.
Sorry, 10 minutes. Yeah, okay.
I've been practicing all day to say Councillor Magalinton, and okay. If I can just share my screen here. Okay. Look, first of all, as Councillor Magalinton has said, my name is Dooley Hart. I'm the Secretary of Craigavon Council of Trade Unions. I'm here to talk to you tonight about community wealth building, and I'll thank the Council for the opportunity to do so. I just want to provide some information regarding community wealth building, its history, what it means, and importantly for us, what the Council can do in relation to this area. Simply put, for Council, community wealth building is defined as community wealth building is defining policy and practical solutions to achieving an inclusive economy. This is about how Council works as an organisation, how it works with its partners, from the goods you buy, the people you employ, the assets you own, and the powers that you have, so that you can bring about change to maximise local economic opportunities. So a wee bit on the history of community wealth building. Very quickly here, it started in Cleveland, Ohio, when a number of local institutions and community activists came together with the aim of creating an alternative to the prevailing trickle-down model of economic development to reverse years of increasing poverty, inequality, and the flight of capital out of their area when businesses closed or moved to new locations. Their focus was on what was called large anchor public and not-for-profit institutions that held considerable financial power to persuade them to localise procurement spending in support of greener, local community and worker-owned businesses. These collectively became known as evergreen cooperatives. They looked at creating a living wage employment city, ensuring the recirculation of wealth within the local economy by investing and reinvesting profits in the local community and creating local jobs. This model was quickly picked up by Preston Council in Lancashire, who again looked at public sector procurement. The results of this process for them were that large anchor institutions quadrupled their share of procurement spend between 2012 and 2018. Unemployment fell in Preston, seeing improvements in educational attainment, improvements in health, in-work poverty, and work-life balance. The council was also able to secure local pension fund investment of £200 million in the Lancashire area and have laid the groundwork for a local community bank. This was then taken on through Wirral, Newham, Islington, but I want to just maybe touch briefly on the issue around North Ayrshire Council, and would encourage Council to look at a lot of the information that North Ayrshire Council have produced in this area. They currently have a community wealth building strategy running from 2020 to 2025, and it sets out a detailed action plan on how it intends to use the economic levers available to deliver resilient, inclusive local economies with more local employment and a larger and more diverse business base, ensuring that wealth is locally owned and benefits local people. So, what is community wealth building? There's 5 basic principles that have been set out here. The first, plural ownership of the economy. This looks at promoting community and worker-owned businesses rather than just focusing on foreign direct investment or larger companies who have a potential flight risk. That doesn't mean that we don't look at foreign direct investment or larger companies, but it means focusing on promoting community and worker-owned businesses. In Northern Ireland, there are around 8,000 large businesses defined as businesses with more than 250 employees. Now, while this only accounts for around about 1% of the businesses, it's 39% of the employment and 48% of the turnover. And it's about trying to look at that money and to take some of that into local ownership. Number 2 is making financial power work for local places. This looks at making financial power work, increasing the flow of investment within local economies by harnessing and recirculating the wealth that already exists, as opposed to continuously seeking to attract capital that everyone else is after. This will include promotion and support for mutuals, credit unions, and community banks. Fair employment and just labour markets. Anchor institutions have a defining effect on the prospects of local people and influence the promotion of good practice on employers. Paying the living wage and building progression routes to employment will improve local economies. Central government obviously have a role in this, but councils can also look at issues around in-work poverty, zero-hour contracts, as well as recruitment from hard-to-reach groups, and invest then in those areas for the local workforce. Number 4 is progressive procurement of goods and services. What this is looking at is developing local supply chains for businesses likely to support local employment and retain wealth locally. These could include local SMEs, employee-owned businesses, social enterprises, cooperatives, and community businesses. And number 5, socially productive use of land and property to deepen the function and ownership of local assets held by anchor institutions so that financial and social gain is harnessed by and for citizens, including extent and community use of public sector land and facilities when that clearly benefits the local communities. So we'll try and set out some examples here in relation to community wealth building within Northern Ireland. There are some organisations who are heavily involved in this process. I've listed a few of it down here very quickly. Trademark Belfast is a social justice cooperative established in 2001, dedicated to tackling sectarianism and inequality, but has developed its work to include the promotion of cooperatives and community wealth building. Trademark Belfast are currently working with the Department for Social Development regarding one of the department's 5-year strategy objectives to grow and scale community wealth building to support economic recovery. The Centre for Local Economic Strategies and the Development Trust NI have begun to map out some of the shifts in thinking and policy needed to advance a community wealth building agenda and have produced a number of strategy papers on this issue. And the Democracy Collaborative set up the Cleveland model in the US and works with organisations in Northern Ireland to promote community wealth building. And certainly there's examples of organisations that the council could look into in more detail and would assist its thinking with regards to this. But apologies. Yes, sorry. So my focus today, while community wealth building is very wide ranging, my focus today is on procurement. the first thing I would acknowledge in relation to some of the things I've said earlier is that there are financial limitations on Northern Ireland councils. While councils in the north are responsible for 4% of public spend, councils of similar size in Scotland and Wales account for 27% of the spend in their areas, while the EU average for councils is around about 23%. In the south, it's slightly higher than what it is in Northern Ireland at 8%, but we absolutely acknowledge that there are limitations on council. However, that doesn't mean that council doesn't have some capacity. I want to give some examples just of community wealth building initiatives that have already begun. The first one there is in the Minister for Finance set up a new procurement board with representatives from employer groups and from the Irish Congress of Trade Unions. Following the board's recommendation, the Northern Ireland Executive will introduce in June 2022 new mandatory scoring for social value within public procurement contracts. When launching this, the Minister stated that this new policy will see the living wage being included as a condition of contract for all tenders from June 2022. And he also said this new policy will help create jobs for people in deprived areas and deliver environmental benefits by requiring contracts to employ low and zero carbon practices. The Northern Ireland Housing Executive has also introduced social values into its procurement process. And this commits the executive to the promotion of social inclusion and equal opportunity as part of its tender process. And they also have conditions of contract, such as apprenticeships and community enterprise engagement within its tenders. And I also know that the council, as part of when the leisure centre was being built, the issue around apprenticeships forms part of that. So I do know that the council has already taken initiatives in some of these areas. The Housing Executive has also introduced 3 KPIs to ensure that it both manages and measures its social value obligations. So it's actively involved in this process. It's not just written down as an objective and then forgot about. It actively engages, manages, and measures these objectives to make sure that that's what's happening. And as I've stated already, the Department for Communities has set one of its strategy objectives in its business plan to grow community wealth building and has engaged Trademark Belfast to assist in this objective. And so what can council do? Firstly, and I want to be clear, community wealth building is not a rush to insource services provided by council that are currently provided to council by private companies, nor is it a call for the privatisation of services that are currently provided by council. Craigavon Council of Trade Unions believes that insourcing is something that council should actively consider for all its services, and the North Ayrshire Council has included insourcing as part of its community wealth building strategy. But that is really a different argument for a different night. My focus tonight, as I say, is on procurement and ensuring that ratepayers get the best value for their rates. And while central government set high-level procurement policy for councils, there is still a lot that councils can do. We've set out; these are just some examples of what council could look at. Introduce a community wealth building program. Have community wealth building as an objective for council, both at a high level and within its policies. Review the current council procurement policy. Select local employers who have good employment practices rather than just the cheapest employer who bids on a tender. This will invest in local employees and therefore will create jobs for ratepayers. Commit that all tenders include a condition that the successful company will be required to pay at least the living wage rate. Include minimum numbers of percentage of workers from the council area to be employed directly or indirectly as part of the tender process, as part of the implementation of the tender if successful. Include additional scoring and recognition of employers who employ staff from underrepresented groups or hard to reach groups such as young people, people from ethnic backgrounds, disabled, ex-offenders, apprentices. There are a wide range of different groups there. So we would absolutely urge the council to take the opportunity to begin to use your financial power to invest locally, give ratepayers value for money. The cheapest option is not always the best option. and to build a procurement policy that supports local workers and moves council towards a community wealth building agenda. Thanks very much for the opportunity to talk to you this evening.
Okay, Julie, thanks very much for that. And yes, excellent presentation. And as you did say, I know in the past in the SLLC, Barnes did use in the contract clause, there was the local business had to be involved. So yes, look, we're going to open the floor, and the first up is Councillor Kyle Savage.
Thank you, Chair, or should I say Smiler? Maybe is a better way to call you tonight. But thank you, Chair, for that. And Dooley, thanks very much for your report here tonight. I suppose first off, I was asking you about the workable programme, the like of USL and all, what support has been given, and what does council do in that? So that's a question we probably have to ask internally. What are we doing? You back on the procurement there. Back in June 2020, we had brought it forward, and with the support of all the councillors, that where possible, council would source local. So it would, and the difficulty in around that has been the procurement escapade, but now that is starting to change in Stormont. So that's good news for us. But I suppose in that bit, we're ahead of you. Where we have been looking at this as a council, and it's the social responsibilities, also the environmental responsibilities whenever we're seeking tenders and that, but it's so important. But look, I get it. I get the community wealth building and all of that, and in full support of it, and happy to support it. But there's a lot of stuff has to be done, and council have to step up to the mark here, and I will do my best to ensure that it does. So look, thanks very much for the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle Savage. Julie, do you want to come back in there?
No, look, I think absolutely, Councillor. Look, we're aware that work has been ongoing within the council, and as I've said, my focus tonight is initially on procurement here, but there is substantially more within this suite of different things, the different principles within community wealth building the council could look at. This for us is the easiest place to start. It's not easy. There are a number of competing factors, but it is the easiest place to start. It's the easiest place to understand, even for me, and talking to people who are engaged in this process. It's the easiest thing for me to understand. It's the easiest thing for most people to understand. And I think for us, it's about making sure that the tender process has the conditions written into it. And while at the minute there's a lot of language around promoting this or supporting that, it really needs to be more than that. It needs to be written into the contract where employers see a benefit of saying, well, actually, if I do A and I do B, I will be rewarded for that. So we are rewarding good employers. Good employers provide good jobs, but they also provide good work. So the council benefits from the quality of work, and the employees, local employees, benefit by having good employers that will look after them and pay them a fair wage for that work. And that's what the focus is for us. We have seen, and I'm not saying within this council, I've seen in other areas where actually the cheapest is always the one picked, regardless of what actually the quality of the service is, or people are being shipped across country in order to do the work and then shipped back out again. So local businesses don't get any benefit of that as well. So it is about, for me, this is about writing it into the contract. Once it's in the contract, then it can't be avoided.
Thanks, Julie. Happy enough, Councillor Kyle Savage. Members, with three more speakers, with Councillor Mackle, Councillor O'Hanlon and Councillor Nicholson. We'll take those three all after one another, and then Julie come back in again.
That's okay.
Councillor Mackle, please.
Yes, thanks, Julie, for the presentation. There's a lot of good, sensible stuff around community wealth building, and as Kyle said, some of the stuff around procurement councils are already engaged with. I was wondering, have you had any engagement with some of the big local employers, like Armagh and things like that? Is there any buy-in with some of these principals and some of the big employers in the area?
Well, haven't as yet, Liam. Oh, sorry, go on ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Julie. Go ahead, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Julie, do you want to come back in there? Or
Take all. It was my fault there. Sorry, Chair. I'm happy to take all the questions. I'll come back on Liam's point. That's okay.
okay, thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and Dilly, thank you for your presentation. I understand where Councillor Mackle's coming from in terms of asking, you know, what engagement you've had from larger employers in the borough. But my issue is, what can we do as a council to ensure that we meet as many of your asks as possible, and in particular the issue around the minimum living wage. You know, there's bound to be issues such as that we can write into contracts. Okay, trying to say to someone, you have to be within so many miles of, or you have to be a ratepayer or something like that, is probably going to be a lot more difficult. But to put quality over cost is, to me, is one thing that we should be pushing for. But also then that we would be writing into any of our procurement exercises the issue around that a living wage is a must. And to be honest, I wouldn't want to be associated with any employer doing work for council that wasn't paying their staff properly. So maybe if, Julie, whilst I'm asking for your comment on it, maybe if some of the officers can come back to us at a point around how we can write some of these asks into our procurement exercises. Well, okay, one, it keeps us within the law, but also some of those issues that in particular around the living wage and stuff that we can do. But look, thanks for your presentation and keep up the good work.
Julie, there's a lot of information there. I'll let answer those two questions first, and then we'll bring in the next speakers. Okay, go ahead.
That's okay. Yes, just on the question around local employers, we haven't done that engagement first because our starting point is with council in the first instance, and it's on the basis of if it's about us using the council's example as a good employer to go to local businesses and say, especially those local businesses that engage with council, to say, look, there is a benefit for you in looking at, you know, the terms and conditions you have, the jobs you offer, the wage you pay. That will be rewarded. The problem with some procurement processes is that the good employer, the issues around the rate of pay, the terms and conditions, how good the employer is, that makes no difference as part of the procurement process. And good employers don't always get the benefit, and therefore bad employers can undercut. And then if you're just looking at this solely as a financial exercise, then you're going to pick the bad employer. The bad employer generally means that the employees aren't content. You know, there's no retention of jobs. There's the likelihood of poor quality work and difficulties for council as part of that process. So it's not just a matter of trying to funnel money through to people who don't deserve it. There's a whole package there that can be looked at. But our starting point is with the and what has been the example in those that I've listed there. It has been to look at large public sector anchor institutions in the first instance, and then going out to engage with private companies after that. Just in relation to Councillor O'Hanlon's point, I think one of the things council can do, I mean, when I talk about council development and a community wealth building programme, that includes research, analysis, seeing where there's good practice. Again, I would encourage you to go and look at the stuff that North Ayrshire Council has done and Preston, but I from a personal perspective, I was very impressed with the stuff that North Ayrshire Council has done in relation to its community wealth building, very rural area as well. Of course, a lot of rural areas in Scotland, and so you know, but it's about setting a program in place. Of course, you can change your procurement to include a sentence or qualification. And in fact, that's what the Minister of Finance has committed the executive to do as part of the civil services public contract or public procurement process, and that's starting in June. The reason that was started, it was kicked back to June, was to give private sector employers an opportunity to understand the process, have an understanding of what was required of them as part of the procurement process going forward. So again, I'm not suggesting council, you know, even if there are very good ideas there, they don't necessarily need to be done tomorrow. I think if council has a programme, has council takes an opportunity to do a bit of research, to do some analysis around what's there, what is to the benefit of this area and what isn't, and make some decisions around that, then you can move forward on a stronger platform.
Thanks, Dooley. Thomas, do you want back in again?
Yeah, Chair, thank you, and thanks for the response, Dooley. Chair, I think Dooley has give us an option there or a request around information gathering and models of best practice with the council in Scotland. Can I propose that, working with Dooley and the local trade union council, that we approach that council and ask for a presentation or some sort of feedback on how it has worked, not just in terms of the council procurement, but as the real thing about community benefit. I have proposed that we engage through Dooley or to the other councils and get a presentation or some sort of feedback and see how it goes. Because there's no point in reinventing the wheel. If it's out there and it's working well, then surely it's something we could be fit to use. So I propose that we reach out to, is it North Ayrshire Council, and ask for a presentation or some sort of feedback on that model of best practice. Thank you.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Thank you, Councillor Michael. With two more speakers, we'll have Councillor Nicholson, and then I'll take Councillor Pope. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Dooley, for your presentation. And I have to be honest, I actually wasn't sure what this presentation was going to be about, but look, as you're in it and going through it, I have to say I fully understand where you're coming from, and I do understand why you've come knocking at our door, because I've always been a believer that councillors should be leaders, not followers, and we should be setting the example out there. And I commend you for coming forward with this. Now, I suppose I've been writing a few notes as you were speaking there, and I have to say, you know, I'm involved with a lot of this type of procurement in my professional capacity, and I have to say a lot of this stuff is already being done. So it's a bit like Thomas has said, we're not reinventing the wheel, and I do think it would be useful to reach out to the North Ayrshire Council to sort of see, you know, what is best practice, you know, because I do believe that when I think Councillor Savage has already mentioned last June, there was a notice of motion he brought forward, which I seconded, which was really, this is what this was about. It was about recognising our local, you know, people and trying to build our economy locally, as well as reaching out beyond and you know, sort of, I suppose, building a self-worth out there within our communities, which absolutely I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. My question, Dooley, is obviously, I don't want to be controversial, but obviously we've left Europe at this stage, and obviously procurement was very much driven by EU legislation, which I know in my professional capacity, it did sort of mean that you had to open the net, so to speak, to a wider range of supply chain, whereas this here would be more sort of a supply chain locally, which and I can see, you know, no issue with building in social, economic and environmental values within procurement. But does Dooley see opportunities now, you know, because that red tape is, as I see at the minute, is potentially gone, and that maybe that there's an opportunity for us that maybe wasn't here before, Chair, you know, when we were in Europe, and so I'm interested to hear what he thinks about that, and if he's done any sort of research on that, because I know EU procurement was quite a rigorous, difficult, you know, piece of legislation to work way through, Chair. But thanks, Dooley, for your presentation, and as I say, it's very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Dooley, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, very quickly. Look, happy to. I think, look, I mean, as I give you in the example, the community wealth building really started in the US, and it's not just, I've given some examples within the UK, but it is, you know, it has been introduced in other areas in America as well. I think maybe the I was going to say biggest difficulty, but that's not right. I think the one thing, rather than maybe whether it would be Westminster, EU, the impacts of Brexit, I think that's less of an issue for you than actually what central government is, because central government will be keen to make sure that you remain within the track of what it sets out of its policy. But its policy is very high level. There is, and that's what I was saying, that there is a lot of scope there for councils to look at how they move forward with this process. Now, I haven't done any specific analysis in relation to EU and whether that will make it easier or make it more difficult, I suppose. But I really don't see, I could well be very wrong on this, I really don't see the issue around leaving the EU as being that much of an issue. I see central government policy and the issues around, both the Assembly's role in supporting councils and the likes of the Central Procurement Directorate and stuff like that probably is more of an issue, more of something that council will probably have to look to, rather than the fallout of what happens with leaving the EU and what conditions that either adds or removes as part of that process. But I haven't looked at that in any specific detail, council.
Thanks, Jerry. Content, Councillor Nicholson, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I suppose where I'm coming from, Dooley, I'm interested if you do have any, is that I've done work with CPD, and obviously when you go over a certain value, you had advertising the EU Journal, and there was all this type of thing. So you're widening the net. And like I'm talking about contracting, in relation to sort of construction type projects and whatever. So it's that. And I always thought it didn't make sense. You could put in all the clauses of the day, buy social and all these things. But if you're bringing a contractor in from France or Belgium or Germany, it didn't make sense to me. You bring them here in Northern Ireland to build. We've got perfectly good contractors here, and it was all to do with this kind of red tape. So I'd be interested to see what that means, in relation to, is it easier or is it not? So
if I can just come back just for a very quick point, Chair, there, I understand my background is in the public sector rather than in the private sector, and therefore I would probably look at it, but I absolutely appreciate the point that you're being made in relation to the larger contracts and the issues around how those are required to be advertised. I have to say, I know that the sort of by social arrangement has been for central government's been looked after by the Strategic Investment Board, and I have to say I haven't been overly impressed. I've been involved in issues around contracts within the public sector, and I just don't think that's robust enough for that by social process. I mean, it's a signposting exercise for me, and it's really not much more than that. And I as I've said, I think council needs to look at having a very robust process that has inclusions into the contract process that gives commitments, both commitments from council, but commitments then on the successful tender, rather than the issue of just assisting or supporting. I think that's where that lies. But certainly your point on relation to the private sector is something certainly that we can look into.
Thanks, Dooley. And we have Councillor Pope, and then the last is Councillor Baxter. Councillor Pope, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Dooley. As others have said, I think there's real value here. I guess I was involved for many years in Scottish procurement, the West of Scotland hub as well. So I think you're absolutely right to highlight the North Ayrshire Council. I just wanted to zoom in on apprenticeships and young people. I think this is very important because I remember the clauses on those, particularly in Scotland, and on training. And really sort of the best practice. And if the council, and hopefully it will be sort of leading, on this in terms of the public procurement, I guess the question is, and the wider, is what else could the council do to encourage this in private procurement in the local area as well, Dooley?
Yeah, very good question. Just on your comment, Ayrshire Council, I've just put a link up on the chat there in relation to the Ayrshire Council strategy that I referred to, running from 2020 to 2025. within my job, I work full time for a trade union, and one of the things that we've been doing within the civil service is trying to promote the issue of apprenticeships, to have the public sector look to apprenticeships as not only a good way to create jobs for young people primarily, but also to retain people. I mean, we've been working with, especially in ICT, we have a real problem in ICT in the civil service, and that we get young people in, they stay a couple of years and then they move on, and when they get some experience under their belt, and it is about trying to retain that. We've actually found that when people come in through the apprenticeship scheme, they are retained for significantly longer periods than people who have maybe come out of third level education straight into the civil service, who maybe only stay a couple of years and then move on, maybe across to the private sector or to another area. So we're very keen to look at apprenticeships within the public sector as well. But within the private sector, I think one of the things for me is, as you have done, as we referred to in relation to the leisure centre contract, is if you have a large contract, you can't do it in every contract, but if you have a large contract, then one of the things that you can stipulate on that contract is that if a tender is saying we will create jobs for young people through an apprenticeship process, and here's what we're committing to doing, and that commitment will then run on after the completion of the work, because obviously apprenticeships will run for a number of years, then I think those employers then should benefit as part of, when you're assessing the tenders, those employers should then benefit from that process, and should be, that commitment should be acknowledged as part of the scoring process. Now, what that does in a longer term is say to those other employers who are not offering apprenticeships, or not offering jobs to people from ethnic backgrounds, or not looking at those hard to reach groups, they're saying, well, we're going to have to start and do that, because if we don't do that, then we're going to lose out as part of these contracts. And therefore, what it actually does is it lifts everybody up. It lifts the policy from the council is clear, the commitment from the council is clear, but it lifts all the employers up and gives the employers a clear direction of what's expected as part of the procurement process. It's one of the things that I know we're continuing to argue with at the procurement board. The ICTU's Assistant General Secretary, Owen Reedy, sits on the procurement board, and I know that is one of the issues that Owen is raising as part of that process. We're very keen to lift up best practice, because if best practice is rewarded, everybody benefits from it. Local community will benefit from it, workers will benefit from it, and council will benefit from it. So, and one of the very good ways of doing that is through the promotion of apprenticeships, and people then get the necessary skills. And then there is a job at the end of it. And look, I'm a big fan of apprentices, as Councillor McAlinton may well know. My son's doing an apprenticeship down in Belfast at the minute. So I'm really keen to see that work, and for young people to get opportunities as part of that.
Thank you, Julie. Content, Councillor Pope.
Just to say, that was a very good answer indeed, and it's really looking to the long term. So. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Brian. Last word to Councillor Baxter, please.
Thank you, Smiler. Sorry, Chairman. I was going to stick with you now.
You're going to be tortured now.
It certainly is, Will. It's the first time I've heard it, and it'll certainly not be the last time I'll use it. Maybe just to bring a wee bit of balance to it. And Julie, thanks very much for the presentation. A couple of things I did pick up on, and what you were saying there in terms of employer. You talked about bad employers, and I think you made reference to bad employers who don't pay a living wage. We may be guilty sometimes here of living in a public service bubble, but we have to be very mindful. We have a lot of businesses here in Craigavon and Armagh and Banbridge that have to be able to compete on a national basis, and indeed a UK-wide basis or an all-Ireland basis, and they have to cut costs in certain places. Now, a living wage, why we'd all aspire to be able to pay a living wage, it's not always possible. And if some of the businesses, if you spoke to the business leaders now in the community and said, look, from tomorrow you have to pay a living wage, a lot of those businesses would go out of business. And I think we need to be mindful of that as well. At the same time, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be striking the rate here. If we go down this road, as much as we would all like to, I think we need to be mindful too that there'll be a huge cost involved as well. So we have to strike a balance here. Yes, we're in the public service, but we're still custodians of the ratepayers' money. So I think we need to show a bit of balance there in terms of how we approach this. So yeah, really appreciate what you brought to us tonight, and it all sounds fantastic. We need to be mindful that there's businesses out there that are struggling. There's businesses that need to compete on a UK and Ireland-wide basis, and I think it's maybe a bit unfortunate that we're saying businesses who don't pay a living wage calling them a bad employer, and the council just going to write it into their tender now that we're not going to let these companies tender for contracts because they're not paying a living wage, even though it's not a legal requirement to do so. So I have some concerns around that, and I think before we look at any of this, we need to have a full in-depth discussion at committee level or whatever on how this is going to impact us as a council, how it's going to impact the ratepayer, and how it's going to impact us as a business, because we're here to run a business too. But look, just some of those points that I want to put out, and in terms of the bad employer bit, I'm just a wee bit nervous around that. Who says that somebody's a bad employer and what would constitute them being a bad employer? So I just wanted to make those points, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter and Dooley. Do you want to finish off with?
Can I maybe just? Sure, are you happy enough just for me to just for 30 seconds to come back just to respond to he does make very valid points. I think look, the national living wage is due to move to £9.50. The current living wage foundation rate is £9.90. So I mean, while there's clearly a difference, there's not a significant difference between those at the minute. But I absolutely accept the point is, I think one of the things, or maybe 2 points I would say, is that I'm making an argument here for council to look at this, to give council options. And then obviously your point is very well made. It will then be for council to decide what it does. I think looking at a number of different areas, I think starting with Ayrshire Council is a good idea. I mean, it has done, certainly I believe it's done some good work. But that doesn't mean that what Ayrshire Council or North Ayrshire Council is doing will fit in within this council. And it is for yourselves, as you say, as public representatives and custodians of the money invested into you by ratepayers, it's to make decisions around that. And I agree, that you can't be throwing money at something regardless of what it is. You can't be throwing money at something if you don't have that money. But this process is not a 1 year or a 2 year process for us. This is about starting slow and building over an extended period of time, because this is all about investing for the future. And I think when council starts to look into the detail of it, that there may well be some costs attached to it, but I don't believe that they will be significant if you're looking at this process in a 5 or a 10 year program rather than maybe in a 1 or a 2 year program. Now I know that's very difficult in the public sector because budgets and finances are not set in a 5 or a 10 year plan, and therefore flexibility is required in this. This program can be flexible in relation to what council does. Council has options, and councillors will make decisions around those options. We just believe there are significant benefits in this, both from setting a plan for council moving forward, setting clear strategic objectives for council, and then for yourselves to look at the detail of that when it comes out and say, right, what can we do and what can we afford to do? And then that will be decisions left to yourselves.
Great, Dooley. Thanks very much. Okay, members, it's been proposed and seconded by Councillor O'Hanlon and Councillor Megal to touch base with the North Ayrshire. Everyone agreed? Okay, members. Dooley, thanks very much for the presentation, and have a good night, and thank you again. Talk soon.
Lovely. Thanks very much for your time, everyone. Cheers.
Okay, thanks. Bye. Okay, members, moving on to agenda item 4, and it's, sorry, Councillor Baxter.
Just a quick question, Chair. On the presentation, absolutely no issues with the presentation, or indeed what Councillor O'Hanlon's asked for tonight as well. I just wanted to ask, maybe through you, Chair, maybe to all of it, the presentation we've just had, did we agree that through the last committee at last month's meeting that we would have it this month?
Yes, through the chair, we received the correspondence back in December's committee, and then members agreed at that committee to invite them to come in to give the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baxter and Olga. Olga, you take the next item number 4, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Item 4 is in relation to an update on the agricultural strategy, which is due to be launched formally at the beginning of March. And just advise members that a significant amount of work has been ongoing in relation to the work in relation to agriculture. And as highlighted, it provides about £376 million to our local economy as well. We're also doing some work as part of the Mid-South West region in terms of demand study, in terms of agri-food. And then members will be aware that recently Sir Peter Kendall announced the independent strategic review of the agri-food sector as well. And we will bring back a report in relation to that once we've had an opportunity to review it.
Thank you, Olga. Councillor Kyle Savage, please.
Thank you, Chair. Olga, just want to thank you and all the team for the work they've put into this. I know it's been a long, hard slog, and the work that has went into it is second to none. And really congratulate the team for what they have done here to bring this to the fore. It's such an important sector, and the pressures that's facing it, we all well and truly know what they are. And throughout, and just in our previous caller there, I was talking about living wage and all. If we count out what the farmers get paid per hour, I can tell you we'd all be in shock here tonight, so we would. So again, it's like one of the issues, one of the lines that I had got put into this way back at the very start, Olga, which was to ensure that there's a fair share of the profits throughout the food chain. And I think that is so important, especially, whenever we see the pressures that's on the agricultural community and all, and these are the people that we depend on to supply the food for our table. And again, but thank you, Olga, and all the team for the work that you've put in. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Olga.
Yes, Councillor Savage. There's been a number of officers right across all of the council who've been working on this and engaging extensively out there with our rural communities, the farming organisation and the support agencies as well. But I also would like to acknowledge that Lisa O'Malley has done an instrumental piece of work in relation to this.
Thank you, Olga. Content, Kyle? Okay, thank you. With Councillor Nicholson and then Alderman Spears.
Hasn't come up, Chair. But so yeah, Chair. Look, thank you, Olga, for the report, and like Councillor Savage has said it all. Obviously send the thanks to all the staff. This is such an important piece of work, and I don't think we should underestimate, because we're the only council, we're the first council to do this, because I've been talking to other councils throughout Northern Ireland, and they have nothing like this. So it really is great to get it to this stage, and really now is when the work's going to start. Look forward to this, obviously the launch, etc., and obviously taking it forward, going forward. But again, Olga and all the staff involved, it's great to get to this stage, and as I say, extend all thanks to them and yourselves and the whole group for taking this forward, because as Kyle says, it's such an important industry. I think we're recognised, and they are under pressure at the moment. There's various things happening out there, be it climate change bills, be it whatever. But and as Kyle says, there's a great saying: no farmers, no food, and that is a fact. They are there. They are creating the food for everybody, and this just outlines just the importance of that industry, and of course the agri-food industry as well. I think we recognise within our borough how important it is. So I do think this is really an important piece of strategy, and I look forward to seeing it develop. Thank you, Olga.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Alderman Spears, please.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I would agree with the comments made by both Kyle and Councillor Nicholson in relation to the work that has been done by the relevant officers that have been involved in this. Yes, we are the first council, as I understand it, in Northern Ireland that has embarked on this. And it's a very well-known fact that agriculture and agri-food is the largest employer in Northern Ireland, and it's key to the jobs of many people. I'm just want to ask a couple of questions in relation to it, and it's in relation to the Peter Kendall review, strategic review of the agri-food industry, and that has been recently published. And as Councillor Nicholson said, we have climate change and all the events that are happening in the outside world, so to speak, that are having a knock-on effect on agriculture, and to some extent, possibly confidence in agriculture, which is actually key. Confidence brings investment, and at this moment in time, I think we have got to send a very clear signal in relation to agriculture and indeed the agri-food industry. But I know that report, I haven't actually read it, but it is, as I understand it, it's a fairly far-reaching report, and it most likely delves into the whole issue of climate change. And to some extent, what has happened in recent days in Stormont in terms of the target of 100% by 2050 is in effect, no doubt, going to affect agriculture in a major way. It's going to change it in a major way. And I think that those factors have got to be examined and indeed taken into account in any way forward that we as a council would endeavour to promote, number one, agriculture, number two, the agri-food industry, and indeed the jobs that provides within this area. So thanks to those involved, but we have challenges ahead, and those are challenges that unless you face them, and the agricultural industry will have to face them, some of them will be extremely difficult, and hopefully the work that we do here in working with all the partners in the agri-food industry, the agricultural industry, will hopefully create pointers whereby we can help in a meaningful way to the sector. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Spears. Olga, do you want to come back in there?
Thank you, Alderman Spears. And as you've outlined as well, there are a number of government departments and agencies out there already doing a lot of work within agriculture, including DAERA, CAFRE and AFBI. And we've been working closely with them to ensure that this strategy is about how do we take forward signposting to the support programs that they have, to the data that the farmers are actually producing, how do we utilise that in the future to help the businesses, but also about how do we help the businesses in terms of sustainability and adaptability as well. So there's a significant amount of work for us in the years ahead, but this is an opportunity for us as a council to highlight the importance of agriculture.
Thank you, Olga. Councillor McElrath, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, listen, it's just very briefly to echo the comments that have already been made here in relation to this. Thank you to the team for the work that has went into it as well. It's good to see this on the agenda tonight. Our farmers have taken a pasting over this last week or two in relation to climate change and so on. So it's good to see that this council is bringing forward a strategy that will support our farmers, support our agri industry, and certainly our party will not be found wanting as far as our farming industry is concerned. So thank you, Olga and the team, and thanks for bringing this forward tonight.
Thank you, Councillor McElrath. Okay, members, moving on to 4.2. Olga.
Thank you, Chair. And this is in relation to the presentation that we've just received from Julie Hart. And members will be aware that we've just received a very comprehensive presentation, which has highlighted areas that have commenced work within community wealth and social value opportunity. And as we emerge from COVID-19, We need to look at how do the economy and the community work closer together to ensure that our area is viable. We will research the issues highlighted and follow up with North Ayrshire Council, and members will be aware that we've started a significant strategic piece of work in the council in terms of inclusive growth, and this will be a key component of it as well.
Thank you, Olga. Okay, members, moving on to agenda item 5, and with 2 items for decision, 5.1, 5.2, and Olga again, please. Oh, sorry, Nicola. Sorry, Nicola.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Yes, 5.1 is an item for decision, and it's entitled Employability and Skills Update and Funding Application. The decision required, it is recommended the members accept the letter of offer from the Department for the Economy in support of the Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon Labour Market Partnership for the total value of £50,000 across financial years 21-22 and 22-23.
Thank you, Nicola. Alderman Mitri, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy to propose this, but when I see reference made to the monthly virtual job fairs for the next number of months, I hope that we'll soon get back to the position where we can have some of these in this fantastic facility that we have, and we'll get back to having physical ones and bringing the companies in, because I think at the end of the day, really the physical presence is hard to beat. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Mitri. Councillor Baxter.
Yeah, happy to second that, Chair. Good news. Yeah, good news. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Councillor Nicholson, please.
Yeah, Chair. Look, I was coming into second, but look, anyway, happy to support. Nicola, thank you for your hard work on this. I think it's so important that, you know, there is pathways for these younger people, and there's real opportunities out there. And we've talked with the agri-food sector, and there is other opportunities, be it tech, be it green growth, whatever. So hopefully we get the range of companies that will come forward, and I suppose on the back of what Dewey was saying, you know, as in the apprentice schemes, you know, would be something to really look at within this, you know, these groups actually consider taking on apprentices. So definitely happy to support, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. We'll have 2 more speakers, Councillor O'Hanlon and then Councillor Kyle Savage.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Nicola, for the presentation. Nicola, just in relation to the piece around the HGV Training and Employment Academy, I think it's great to see that we've had over 250 applications, but we've only got 45 places. And I know from speaking to quite a few young people who, and I have to say both male and female, who had expressed an interest in the scheme, which I think is great. I'd be keen to see if there's a way we could look at maybe expanding that programme further and seek if there was additional funds to run, maybe provide another 45 places for anyone who's speaking to people in the haulage industry. You know, they're getting it really tight to get drivers, and if this is a way of alleviating that pressure locally, I think it's definitely something I'd be keen that we could look at. So if I could ask if you could either talk to the department or even look within ourselves to see and bring back a report on how much it would cost to provide additional places. I think it's something I'd be very, very keen to see. And then maybe in due course, if you could give us a report on the spread of where the applications are coming from and what particular parts of the haulage sector people are interested. Is it food distribution or what? But you know, I think it's definitely it's been a very successful and popular scheme, and I would hope that we could expand that even further with the view to providing another 45 places, because it's one thing that the scheme or the industry is absolutely crying out for, and that's more drivers. And if this is a way of opening that up, I think it's definitely something that we can do as a practical next step.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Good point. Nicola, do you want to come back in on that there?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And Councillor O'Hanlon is right. It is a very, very huge need out there amongst our residents, but also the local employers as well. So we're so glad that we were able to bring forward a scheme with 45 places. However, we do know, as you have rightly said, that that's only just a drop in the ocean at the moment. We're hoping to go back for additional funding for the year after this one to be able to do more of this and to treat this almost as a pilot, so that we can start to make those tweaks, that we can start to review the evidence that's coming forward to make sure that our provision is on target with what both the businesses and the employers want. And we'll keep bringing that information back as we get it.
Chair, can I just, Nicola, you just...
Thank you, Nicola. Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Nicola, you said the year after this one. Is those 45 places within the current financial year? And you would hope them to secure funding for the next financial year, which starts in April? Or are these 45 places going into this current, into the new financial year?
No, through you, Chair, it's up until the end of March this year, and then we're hoping to get more funding then for the next year. Just forgot which year I was in there, so
No,
it's up until the end of March this year.
That's great. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Councillor Kyle Savage, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just really reiterate everything that Councillor O'Hanlon has said there about the HGV. And we noticed last year at every time that we've been lobbied for the problems that the logistics companies were facing, and it's good to see that Council have in partnership responded to that. But again, there is a massive need in this sector, and it's whatever we can do to try and run another program or whatever. I think we need to do that as much as possible. But look, I'm glad to see apprenticeships is on this and being featured more, and we need to be working close with our business sector and that. And I've always said there's a link there between that Council has to play between business and education, where we're educating our young people for the jobs and potential jobs that we have within the area. And that upskilling, reskilling, it has to be to the fore. But Nicola, is there any way of gauging the outputs here? The number of jobs that's created through these jobs fairs. Is that possible to do like that? Just something. I know we have been successful in SOAR. I know it's separate altogether, but it's something that's great to hand, to hold up, that we have actually helped to create so many jobs within this area. And so that's really where I'm coming from on that. But look, we need to keep at it. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Just to come back on that, for each job fair that we have, we know in advance how many jobs the companies attending have on offer. So yes, we have that information, and it's not just the jobs on offer, it's also then the support that is provided by the partners that are also at those events, that are there to support the residents and the citizens who come forward to those. So yes, we have the number of jobs, but also then we would have the number of referrals that are made by the support organisations as well.
Well, just Chair, if I could come back, well, it'd be good to get that information, if that was brought forward, because it makes it worthwhile that we hear the feedback on that. So it does, and I think that's important. But, there's vacancies in every sector right across, and there's a massive demand. Companies are crying out looking workers at the moment, and it's a shame. And if you look at the figures there, 4,000 odd is unemployed in the area. So there's linkages there that need done. There's more work needs done, but it's good work to date, but we need to do more. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Thank you. Okay, members, it's been proposed and seconded by Alderman Moutry and Councillor Baxter. Everyone agreed? Okay, move on. 5.2, Nicola.
Thank you, Chair. And 5.2 is about Community Renewal Fund applications update. So the decision required members were requested to approve the contract of agreement between Council and Healthcare Analytics Limited to deliver the Southern Region Data Innovation Hub funded through the Community Renewal Fund up until June 2022.
Okay, Nicola, thank you. Okay, members, can we any hands? No. Could we have a proposer and seconder, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Michael, and seconded by Councillor Baxter. Thank you. Okay, members, the next four items are from 5.3 to 5.6. 6 or items for information. So unless anyone wants to speak, happy to note. Okay, sorry, Councillor Pope, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, it was just on item 5.4, Urban Centre update on the Banbridge public realm. I'm delighted to see that procurement is ongoing at the moment with a contractor expected on site in late July 22. It was just a request to officers if they could contact local traders and notify them well in advance of that to minimise disruption to their businesses. Thinking particularly about utility services as well. So it's a request that they engage in that. I'm sure they will, but just to reinforce that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pope. Councillor Greenfield, is this in the same item? Okay, Nicola, do you want to take this one first?
Yes, absolutely, Chair. The public realm in Banbridge is very, very important to council and to residents and business as well. And we know from previous experiences that communicating early and often is so important for the businesses so that they know when street closures are happening, so they know how deliveries are going to be handled and how customers are going to be handled and lots of other things as well. So Laura, our town centre manager, sits on that public realm steering group. So she is the conduit between the steering group and the decisions that are being made and the communications that are being made and the traders. So just to reassure you, Councillor Pope, that connection has been made and Laura is actively aware of her role and is following up on that.
Thank you, Nicola. Content, Councillor Pope.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair.
You. Thank you, Councillor Greenfield, please.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, just on 5.5, I suppose the evaluation of the Christmas 2021. And if we just firstly thank the officers and those all involved for the feedback and the receipt is something that I had asked that we did the good evaluation of it. And certainly would like to see some more feedback on it. But I suppose the points that are raised on it are very, very relevant. And it's good to see that we were on the right track with everything that we've done over Christmas, even in this time of COVID, and hopefully as we progress we'll have even more events. But one of the things on there was about the nights that we choose, and I do feel that's important, and certainly that would reflect the feedback I received in Banbridge on having it on the Friday night. And just one other point, Chair, if I could ask, if it's something we could look into, one of the other comments that's made on is about our Christmas lights in some areas, and I know talking to some who've been there for a long time, Banbridge, and as soon as they were put up, there was quite a few complaints about some of them not working and bits and pieces, and the team did work very quickly to do that. But just thinking even others of like Rough Ryland there and Guildford, something has been raised with quite a few of the councillors, I believe, that about looking at if we could do some sort of a study on even the age of some of our lights, this condition of them, and if we could potentially look at investing in some newer stuff. It is some of the feedback that's come through in that report, which I probably did expect when I seen it. So, Chair, just if I could even propose that we do have a look into that, even if some of our lights are quite an age and the condition of them and stuff as we move forward with the potential of increasing new lights in certain areas that I've mentioned, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Nicola, do you want to?
Yes, Chair, just to say that we will liaise with our colleagues across council and ensure that that piece of work is carried out.
Content, Councillor Greenfield.
Yep, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Nicola, and back on the same issue as Councillor Greenfield in terms of the Christmas campaign. I note that they said that there's a early planning for the 22 Christmas, and I know we only seem to have one off our back, but and we're starting to look ahead. Look, I want to place on record my thanks to the staff who have been involved. And a note it did say about because of the year we were in, we had to do some things different, and there was the drive-in movie nights, and there was a bit of a blip in Katie. But look, I have to pay tribute to the girls who were on the scene on the night and tried to get everything sorted and the follow-up activity since that. But I would be keen that we plan for the return of the twilight markets, particularly to the towns and villages in the next year, and I'd be keen that is programmed at an early point. But secondly, around the branding of Light Up the Borough, you can go into Lisburn and Castlereagh, you can go to Ballymena, means the same there. There's nothing there around distinctive about ABC. So I just been keen that, I don't know if it's a workshop in this format or what, at an early stage where members' views are sought and tested before we go to the full campaign and stuff for next year. It's just, I get it, the graphics and all were fantastic. That's not the issue. To me, light up the borough, it could be anywhere. And I think we need to be trying to be much more specific. And I know in previous years that would have been tailored to light up Armagh, light up Banbridge, light up Portadown or Lurgan. And I think that sort of spin needs to be put on it. But it's just in terms of the branding or that overarching theme, whilst I understand we need one overarching thing, I think we need to be mindful that it needs to be specific to our council area, so that someone looking at it from the outside will know exactly what it means. So there's that, and the issue around the twilight markets, and like Councillor Greenfield, maybe an audit of Christmas lights across the borough would be useful, because I just happened to notice that some back streets in Portadown had more Christmas lights than whenever you drive through Market Hill and Carey. You know, and I see Councillor Barry nodding there. I'm sure he's getting it in the ear as well. And I know there was investment in some of the lights in previous years. To me, I actually see that in those towns where that lighting was invested in, there's less lights in it there in last Christmas. Maybe there was ones was faulty or something. That might be the issue. But as I say, if you take a look at some of the back streets in Portadown, there's more lights in those than there is in some of our towns and villages. And this isn't about saying, right, you take lights out of Portadown. This is about saying, right, there's other areas that we also need to invest in. And I'd be keen for a report to be brought back at an early opportunity. But look, Nicola, thanks very much for the work. And indeed, your team, but also the team in the like of operational services who go out and put lights up and take them down and do all that sort of stuff. It really is appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Hanlon. Do you want to come back and Nicola, or do you want to head to the next couple of speakers?
No, I suppose I just wanted to echo Councillor O'Hanlon's views there that yes, it is a complete team effort across council, and nearly every department is involved in it, and it is a testament to all the officers that are able to work together. Certainly very, very happy to organise workshops early in relation to branding and getting ideas from members, because you know every idea is a good one, and sometimes it's hard to think of something new around Christmas. So we'll be very sure to organise that and to follow up with those concerns as well that you have. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. Members, with 4 more speakers, okay, and we'll take 2 now. It's Councillor Kyle Savage, and then we'll take Paul Duffy. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, Nicola, again, a big thanks to the team that carried out the work before Christmas. I know they were working under pressure because everything was landed at the last moment on them, really, to a certain extent. But taking on some of the points of Councillor O'Hanlon again, what he said about light up the borough, I noticed he failed to mention light up Dromore and that all, but sure, we're used to that.
No problem, light it up, surely.
But on
there's other times of the year you light it up too.
We'll keep her lit. Anyway, on that, could I suggest that we get start talking about this in May time, you know, before the summer time, and that, you know, that we give our staff a chance and an opportunity to be well prepared this year. Hopefully, as COVID will be well and truly on the back burner and that, but you know, I think we've got to find a new way of working and all of that going forward, and take the opportunities that arise from that. And you know, but again, the staff, it's not fair us landing a pile of work on the staff on the mouth of Christmas. And they were working under pressure, and all credit to you for delivering under pressure. But I think we need to sort of draw a line in the sand here, right? May time, we need to start discussing for Christmas. So that's just my view on it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kyle Savage. Good point. Councillor Duffy, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Nicola, and thank you to your team. And it's just sort of a crossover really between the two there, between the 2-tier towns, urban centre updates. And I know they're saying, you know, we need to start talking in May, but with all the works that's going on in our town centres, we would need to be making sure the infrastructure for Christmas lights and all is installed now. because as Councillor O'Hanlon said, he seconded a proposal for one of the back streets in Portadown I had made a couple of years ago in Woodhouse Street, which never had the infrastructure for Christmas lights and never got it. So I know they're doing public realm work down in there at the minute, and just to make sure that they put the infrastructure in there when they're doing it for the Christmas lights, and they do it in basically Dromore, Tandragee, they do it right across the board when they have the streets ripped up, rather than saying they're looking lights in and they're saying there's no infrastructure there, and would it take the rip up pavements to do this, to do that, to get the infrastructure. So they might as well do it now when they're doing them works. Thank you. Thank you, Nicola.
Good points, Councillor Duffy. Thank you. Members with Councillor Barry, and then finish off with Councillor Nicholson, please. Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be very brief. I would just wholeheartedly agreed with the other councillors in relation to the drive-in cinemas of a great success. But one thing I think that must be mentioned is the consultation that our staff, who done an exceptional job, had with the schools, the local schools, because I know the local primary schools and all were very appreciative of the fact that they were consulted in relation to sort of, what films the kids would want to watch. So there was a real community buy-in. And I suppose it's lessons for the future, but let's hope that, as others have said, we're moving forward away from that until this year. And I would agree with Councillor O'Hanlon in relation to the twilight markets. We obviously had tried that as a pilot before COVID hit, and they were a fantastic success. Yes, there could have been tweaks made. They could have been maybe downsized, and we could have looked at a lesser budget. But I think, as Councillor Kyle Savage has said, let's start looking at it now. Because it's our staff, those girls and chaps who made Christmas deliver for everybody this year and previous years. They're the ones that have to do the work and have to do the work on the ground and get everything involved. So I think we need to start that sooner rather than later, and let's take a look at that. And also on the lights, this is something that is always a bit of an annoyance every year. Whilst lights have been improved over recent years, I don't think that's a sort of a sit still. I think we should be looking at that on a yearly or every 2 years to see how we can make further improvements to our lights across the city, Borough and Dromore, and that everybody's catered for. So I think those are something. But as Kyle Savage has said, and Thomas, I think we need to get around the table soon to be looking at planning for events for Christmas with the potential of twilights.
Thank you, Councillor Barry. Councillor Nicholson, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I have two questions, Nicola, in relation to the city centre identities. When are those workshops, the dates, when will they be released? We're in February now, obviously. There were people asking about that, and make sure we get a good turnout. And also in relation to the evaluation of Christmas, I know I support what others are saying, and it'd be good to get together and have a workshop to have a discussion, because I do think it is all a wee bit bitty, and we are seeing other councils like Lisburn and all investing in some sort of light feature or whatever, which people share over social media, and then they're all going, why don't we have this in our borough? But look, we're coming out of COVID, as has been said. But the one thing that basically, hopefully, going forward this year, things will be different. The Christmas car parking, Nicola, I support the idea of free car parking around Christmas, no issue with it. However, I have been approached by a couple of businesses in Armagh, and they questioned, unfortunately, what happens, and I don't know if it happens in other parts of the borough, staff park in the free car parking. And so it's not available for visitors to the borough. And it's just something that I would like to maybe investigate a bit more throughout the borough. Is it an Armagh problem? Does it happen elsewhere? I know it's very difficult how to stop it. I have no idea, because it's kind of like, it's there, open for, for everyone. But, and I spoke to staff and I says, look, well, tell your staff to, park, and leave the spaces free. And then the argument back is, but look, they have to walk to their cars in the winter's evening and it's dark and blah, blah, blah. So look, it's something maybe when we look at to make sure it's a more successful, like we don't have, you know, sort of some businesses sort of, because I do think it's beneficial, you know, that people do, that we do put this on in around Christmas especially, but there is that sort of, you know, problem. And I think it's everywhere that maybe, you know, the spaces aren't being used to what the idea they're there for. I don't know. I'll leave it with you. So.
Okay, I'm getting the nod from the chair to come back with some sort of an answer to this one, and I'll attempt to do the best that I can. Yes, there's a number of points that members have raised, and hopefully I've taken a note of most of them. I'll go to, first of all, Christmas car parking, because it's the one that was raised last there. And you're right, the idea of staff parking in areas where perhaps businesses would like their customers to park is something that is borough-wide. I think it's Northern Ireland-wide and all of those things. So maybe one of the things that we should look at and to look at with the BPA, Business Partnership Alliance, and the Chambers and the City Centre Management is some sort of a joint message to all the businesses across the borough, some sort of a joint campaign to say, look, at key events like this, it's an opportunity to capitalise on the free parking so that you get more people in through your shops. And that is something we can do and may help that situation. Interestingly enough, I was looking at some of the results that were coming back from the car parking and what people thought about it. And over 80% of businesses that responded to the survey said, yes, they welcomed the free car parking that council was provided. But I understand your point completely that unless customers are able to use it, there's no benefit really to the businesses. So one of the things that we can look at and progress is maybe that joint message with the BPA, the Chambers and the City Centre Management. That might help in that regard. In relation to Christmas, I agree with members that it's time to start looking at Christmas as soon as possible. And maybe one of the things to do is to look at starting another working group, but really for me to start to break down the work streams that need to flow together, looking at lights, infrastructure and investment, events, markets, key messaging and branding, and dare I mention it, trees, but there may be other things as well. So start to maybe organise some of those meetings so that by the time we're ready to operate, that there are no surprises in there and that we're all working together as a council with our key partners as well. And in terms of the urban centre identities, I know that work is, we are very keen to get that underway. So I will let you know, and members all know when those workshops have been agreed on the dates of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicola. Members, there's a few more lights on, but look, there's three more speakers and that's the end of the discussion. We've Councillor Greenfield first, Alderman Anderson, and then Alderman Ridley to finish off. So three more speakers and that's it. Councillor Greenfield, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for letting me back in. I'll be just very brief. It's just, Chair, we were talking there about the drive-in movies, and certainly agree with Councillor Barry about the good engagement with the schools. But could I just highlight, Chair, that in the past we did quite a few movies shown in Solitude Park in Banbridge in the late sort of autumn time coming in, and they were very successful. And just, I know with COVID and stuff, things haven't happened the last 50 years. So if I could just put that reminder tonight, just that we could plan for these again, for that, be very successful. And certainly the idea of even getting the schools involved, even for the likes of those nights, I think are very worthwhile in the working community buy-in. So if I could just raise that, Chair, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. It's noted. Alderman Anderson, please.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Can I also thank Nicola and her team, and also right across the departments for the team effort in the lighting up of the borough just passed. It's good to know maybe we're moving to a situation where we're going to have discussions at an early stage. Maybe in past years, if I remember, there was maybe money put into the budgets to allow for a certain level of new lighting, to have more sort of up-to-date Christmas lighting. I don't know what the budgets will be. We're coming up to setting rates shortly, and we will need to look if there's going to be sufficient funds in there to maybe bring better lights to. We all have our pet areas coming from where we are. We look at all the different streets, but I think that needs looked at before we move into how put lighting we can put right around the borough. And I think we need to have a good look at that to ensure that we have enough lighting and if the funds are available going forward. So that's just a few points I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Anderson. Councillor or Alderman Mitri, please.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't intend to come in, but as the meeting went on, I thought there were just a few things I want to make a few brief comments on when we have the opportunity in relation to the drive-in movies. And it's great to hear they were very successful. And whenever it didn't work in Katy, I know council officers did go the second mile, provide hampers, and fair play to them. That was an excellent gesture to the people that were let down in the night. But there's also an indication that the take-up wasn't complete, that the tickets were free and people didn't take them up. Can I make a suggestion that a nominal charge is made? Because this has been done at events in other boroughs where a ticket costs something like £1 or £2, just because more often people will not register a ticket and pay a couple of pounds and then not turn up. They'll think it out beforehand. And we've seen exactly the same as happened in the drive-in movies happened at the celebration for the centenary in Lurgan Park last year in September. Lots of people didn't take up their tickets. They pre-booked online maybe 6 tickets but didn't turn up because they were free. So I would suggest just a nominal fee might be enough. I've seen that's done in another council and seems to have helped there. In relation to free parking and Councillor Nicholson's comments, that's not the experience in Lurgan, but then again, as he says, it might be specific to some towns or some cities. In Lurgan, it went down well, and there doesn't seem to be that, for lack of a better word, exploitation of the scheme. Obviously, I think this year's different because the spend local card of £100 helped, and I've spoken to a lot of drapers, fashion shops, etc., who said they really benefited in the run up to Christmas, and it made a big difference to them in what could have been a very difficult period. In relation to the Christmas lighting around the different parts of the borough, towns, cities, hamlets, villages, or wherever, you know, people can't be left out totally, but at the same time, we need a wee bit of reality around this. Surely there's some type of mathematical equation can be worked out in relation to population, so that the bigger towns get a higher percentage, smaller places get a proportionately lower percentage, but get something at least. And again, I would encourage officers maybe to talk to other councils to see if they can learn how it's handled, because this comes up year in, year out in this council, you know, that different places didn't get, or it wasn't up to standard. So, you know, an audit of the lighting could help us along that road, and then, you know, get something that's population based. And really, that's all I want to say. But, you know, generally, yes, I think it's been a successful Christmas under the difficult circumstances. Hopefully next year will be very different. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Nicola, is there anything you want to come in there? Okay, okay, members. That's item number 5 all finished. We're moving on to agenda number 6, and it's the head of tourism, and it's Brian going to take this report. So Brian, far away.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. 6.1 is a tourism update generally, and the introduction to the report outlines obviously the ongoing difficult trading conditions that the tourism hospitality businesses are experiencing, and we continue to work really closely with them to try and work out how we can best modify what we're doing to respond to those needs. So the report before members this evening relates to that. But I think, you know, to start with a real positive, in 2022, obviously the good news story in tourism in Northern Ireland, in the UK, probably last week, was the opening of the Game of Thrones tour at Banbridge, and there was huge international media and tour operator interest in the events. So there was a media event on the Wednesday, and then on Friday there was not a follow-up sort of opening event. I think again this committee has engaged with this project significantly over the last 3-4 years, and again it's great to see this sort of finally come to fruition, and to actually have a world-class tourism facility in our borough. I'd like to congratulate the team at Linamouth Studios. for putting together a fantastic product. And again, to commend them for, again, the increasing work with Banbridge, with our working group that's been going on. So that's been a real positive over the last week. There are a number of other items within the report, Chair, that talk about what we're doing in terms of trade communications. There's a specific recommendation around the spring marketing campaign, which we have a letter of offer for, which I'll come back to, and just some of the initiatives that the team are working on over the next number of months. So the recommendation specific to this report before members is it is recommended that members agree the approach to upcoming tourism sectoral support activity and accept the funding letter of offer of up to £20,250 from Tourism Northern Ireland for the spring 22 destination marketing campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Councillor Kevin Savage, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your report, Brian. I noticed in the service level agreement, there's plans to bring selected influencers down and treat them to the best there is. I know there's been a bit of kickback recently in relation to influencers and the perception that they're getting something for nothing and that they're coming into places and then maybe highlighting it on their social media feeds, and there's no tangible benefits to the place where they're visited, in this case the Borough. Could you tell us a bit more about them plans, Brian, or is it still at a very early stage, or, you know, I'll just be interested in your thoughts in relation to that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Brian, thank you.
Councillor Savage, thank you, Chair. Yes, we're still developing on those, and we do a lot of research into who we perceive the influencers to be. So in terms of our social media, it gives a much more extended reach when we reach out to those people that have that wider network. But again, there's extensive discussions before people arrive with us to make sure that there's an agreement as to what that looks like going forward in terms of the output. So I would just give you surety, Councillor Savage, that is something that we, because again, as was said earlier, this is obviously public money, so we do make sure we get the best return for that investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Content, Councillor Savage. Thank you. Councillor Nicholson, and then we'll have Alderman Mitri.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Brian, for your report. And Chairman, I'm happy to propose the recommendation that's on the report. And I want to just sort of echo Brian's comments that, you know, the opening of the Game of Thrones tour this week was massive. We saw the wide sort of, you know, PR that it got right across the world. To get some of the, you know, the actors here, Bram Stark and Sandy and others to attend was a big coup as well, and shows you how highly they, you know, are regarding this as part of their branding and going forward. So look, Brian, I want to pay a tribute to you and obviously all the tourism department, because I know you were a major part of putting the shoulder to the wheel to get this one, you know, and open. And I think that needs to be recognised, because I do think, I always say this every time. I met a guy one time at a dinner who was the mayor of Watford, and they had got Harry Potter land. And when I turned around, I said to him, we were getting Game of Thrones. He says, "You have no idea what you're getting." He says, it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to transform your borough. And hopefully we'll see that over the coming months and years. So look, I would share Councillor Savage's sort of issue about social influencers, but unfortunately that's the world we live in nowadays. And it does seem to be through, whether it be Instagram or whatever social media platform, these people are becoming more and more a thing. And I wouldn't. They do promote the you know, across social media, the facility, the area, and all that they're being involved in. Them personally, maybe they're not really that worried about it, but you know yourself, it does get the message out there, and it is part of society we're in today. But look, anything that we can do to promote our borough, you know, in the spring, you know, before the summer, will be very beneficial, whatever way we do it. So, Chair, happy to propose, and again, thanks to Brian and the team.
Thank you, Councillor. Alderman Moody, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. And I'm very happy to second the proposal. I congratulate Brian and his department on the work that they have done and are currently undertaking. But can I just make a suggestion here? And I don't want to bounce Brian tonight. I don't expect an answer, but maybe some consideration would be given. Over the last couple of years, people haven't been able to visit our museums within the borough, and we do have quite a number of museums, and there are a lot of artifacts. Can I ask if an exploration would be done as to what there is relating around the Queen and the royal family? And perhaps a short exhibition could be held in this building sometime during the summer, given that a lot of people still won't be travelling far and that this building hasn't been used. It's been underused over this last 2 years, and possibly something could be set up at a fairly low cost just to give folks somewhere to come out and see some stuff. I have noticed that it's been done in Lisburn Castlereagh last week at the Island Linen Centre. So perhaps some consideration could be given to that. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Brian, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Alderman Mitry. Yes, certainly happy to bring a report back. We can do some research as to what artefacts we have in the museums with regard to that. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Members, the last speaker in this item is Councillor Greenfield, please.
Thank you, Chair, and certainly supportive of Councillor Alderman Mitry's suggestion there, Brian, and look forward to that report coming back. But just to put in record again, Brian, thanks to you and your team around the Game of Thrones there, and especially even I think the involvement has been great between the town centre and the extra meetings that's been done, the task force, the town centre meetings are monthly. I think this has been a great thing for making sure that the town centre and those in business there are part of the whole journey of Game of Thrones, and I know it has been very much appreciated. I think there's a completely different atmosphere and feel there, Brian, and certainly credit to yourself and the team who have made that happen, and the Game of Thrones who came on board. You've been able to bring them to the meetings monthly, and it certainly has been a benefit to all of us to understand what's going on when it's happening. We've been kept very well up to date, and I know we've certainly appreciated as councillors in the area, and I know the business have as well. So just to put in record, Brian, thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Okay, members, 6.1, we'll have a proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Alderman Moody. Everyone agreed? Okay, Brian, 6.2.
Thank you, Chair. And this is a standing item on our agenda. So again, just we've furthered up. This relates to UK City of Culture 2025 bid. We've had a further update since the report was produced. We now know that on the week commencing the 21st of March, we will know if we've been shortlisted down to the last 3 cities. And following that, then the judges would visit mid-April, probably the week commencing the 18th of April. So we're starting to get a clearer timescale going ahead. So this report very much relates to really probably phase 2 of the project. So we have a 6-week window now to really work further on in the detail of all of the aspects that we've spoken about. I would just say just a few points to pull out for members' attention. In terms of engagement, one of the things we are proposing to do would be to take ABC to Westminster and also to try and do an event within Stormont to raise the profile of ABC, utilising the mechanism of UK City of Culture, but effectively just to bring this to a wider agenda. So that's something we're suggesting. We do too need to look at our communications and branding again, and Claire in the comms team's been working hard in this regard, and we're looking at refining that over the next period of time. Communications is going to be key, just to draw that out as well. And again, just an event that we're proposing to do on the back to again continue our profile raising is to do a conference in March, and that would draw in a range of international speakers. Again, just it keeps us sort of very, very visible in this regard. In terms of finance and governance, there is still a need to bring back a more detailed report to committee, and that will be done in advance of any announcement. So if we know we are shortlisted, a report will be brought back with more detail, and we'll need a lot more conversation on that, and that may need a number of conversations to make sure we've got that right, because that's a big fundamental part of that. So it's recommended that members endorse the forward work plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Brian. And yes, a big 6 weeks ahead of us. Councillor Nicholson, please.
Yeah, Chair, and thanks, Brian, and you're right, Chair. It's a massive 6 weeks ahead of us, and obviously we've all everything crossed for the next period. Hopefully, we get through to the next stage. Happy to propose, Chair, the recommendation. I think it is important that we do really, keep the wheel turning and keep the visibility and keep ourselves to the fore, both from the Northern Ireland level and obviously UK wide, because as I say, this is a massive opportunity for our borough and our city, going forward. And again, Brian, obviously thanks to you and all the staff so far, and all the work that's been done. Like, I know these things are a massive undertaking, and it's not in any way, taken for granted. We understand that this is like new ground for all of us in relation to what we're putting together, and obviously we're all sort of praying and fingers crossed that we get through to the next stage. And I know that the work that you guys have done will be the reason we get through to that next stage, and hopefully go ahead and become the city of culture. But just pass on the thanks, Brian, to all the staff, and keep up the good work. So thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Michael, please.
Yes, and just to reiterate what Sam was saying, I thank Brian and the team and everybody else that worked on getting the bid over the line last week, and happy to second the proposal. Exciting times ahead. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. Councillor Greenfield, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was just to support the proposal tonight, and I suppose hopefully, Brian, by May, when we're talking about our Christmas and our strap lines that we have, be able to light up our UK City of Culture for 2025 will be something that we'll be able to promote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenfield. Okay, members, proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Michael. Everyone agreed? Agreed. Okay, members, I need a proposer and seconder to go in the committee for the confidential items. Councillor Nicholson and Alderman Spears. Thank you. Okay, members and online viewers, in accordance with Schedule 6 of the Local Government Act, we will now be moving into a confidential session of the Council. This means that we will be turning off the public feeding or feed of the meeting. Please, this will be returned when the meeting is restarted. Can I ask Danny to please turn off the feed? Thank you, Danny. Okay, members, agenda item 8, with no other business, so that concludes the meeting tonight. So thank you, members, and have a safe journey home and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.